Hi, and welcome to another devlog. First thing that you will notice is that I added food, health and oxygen meter. It is an alien unhospitable planet after all, therefore the need for survival elements. I added a first gun to the game, but it will be like a multi-tool. You will be using it to repair tires and other stuff around the base, as well as shooting enemies with it. I want to keep the feeling of you being an explorer on an alien planet, so there will be no heavy machine guns. The way I did the laser is just spawn a mesh instance with a cylinder and then I rotate it with look at function and set it to fade over time with twin. Also added some particles that move from the gun to the endpoint. The gun is attached to the hand with a bone attachment node as well as to the hip of the leg, so there are two mesh instances that I change depending if the gun is holstered or drawn. For the animations I'm using animation 3 with animation node blend 3 because I find it easier to work with. As you can see, I'm using two different blend spaces for walking and aiming, just because I found it's easier to have two separate animations instead of blending the arms separately. I also added first enemies to the game, along with the wave spawner for them. I know exploding enemies, very original, but they're okay for a start. But I didn't manage to get their ragdolls working properly. They look pretty stiff for now. As you can see, I also added some slime effect on the HUD when they explode. The way the bombers work is that when they get close enough to the player, they will explode and deal certain damage if the player is still close enough to them. As you can see, they're very simple enemies. They have only 3 animations: a walking, idle and exploding animation that gets triggered when they're close enough to the player. When you kill the enemy, his ragdoll will spawn in his place. But I just couldn't get it to work properly. I don't know if it's my fault or if Godot doesn't work properly. Anyway, I wanted to show you a quick spawner. The way I did it is that I have a list of spawn leaves and wait leaves. So when the spawner gets triggered, it will start the first leaf, and if it's a spawn leaf, it will spawn appropriate amount of enemies. And if it's a wait leaf, it will just wait a second or two. And the spawn point has the responsibility of spawning enemies over half a second or so. I added also a couple of new items that are usable by the player. You can use the items while they're on the ground by tapping the interaction button, or you can use them while you are carrying them. The only thing that's left is to add some effects. I also started working on sound effects for the game. As you can hear, walking on the sand and on the base is different sound effect being played. I did that just by checking the collision layer beneath the player. Another big part that I added is being able to place buildings in the game, in this case a tent. A tent will be a crucial part of your exploration equipment, so make sure you don't lose it. You can use it to change the time of the day and to charge your battery. So the tent is just a start, and I will be adding a lot more of equipment parts to the game, like for example adding a cooking station. Also placing equipment will be important for some quests. Also, if you have some interesting ideas of what I could add to the game like this, I would be happy to hear them. I added day and night cycle just by changing the properties with animation player. I added some foliage to the game using ProtonScatter plugin. Foliage gives some life to the game, it's not all static and lifeless. I was going for some coral-like trees, but this is just the first draft of them. I will probably changing them. I think corals fit pretty well in this desert environment, so I will be sticking with that design in the future as well. Another big part of the work that I managed to finish is the save and load system. For now there's only one save slot, but in the future I will be adding the ability to save on the multiple slots. And as you can see, you can only save at the terminals. Saving and loading is always a lot of work, so I'm glad I did this early in the process. The only thing that I didn't have the time to finish is the enemy spawns. They will spawn again when you load the game, but that will be easily fixed in future. For the loading screen I'm just using an auto load scene, which acts as a static scene. The scene just has a background image and a texture progress bar, and this scene is responsible for changing the level in the game. And for the end I made the main menu for the game. You can change some basic video and audio options. For now there's not a lot of options that you can change, but they're good for the start. Also, what I didn't have the time to implement is key rebinding. That will be done for the next devlog, I believe, because that's when I plan to release an early alpha of the game on itch.io, that everyone will be able to download and test. For the alpha I plan to add a couple of missions and maybe one new enemy, so we'll see how that goes. So that's about everything I did for this devlog, and I hope I see you next time. Bye bye.